They wrestling my demon sins. These eyes of mine, I hide the sins burning beneath my skin, my inhibitions. Still the good times, they keep on rolling. Like the rolling, rolling thunder. The distant days of summer, we knew best when we were younger. My lover loved another, still I loved her all the same. To love her for always, I know no other way. To love her for always, I know no other way.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that opening sequence, because today we're going to be talking about the lens that has been capturing all of my wildlife content for the past 9 months or so, and that is the Nikon 200-400 VR2. Now, if you guys are new here, I would love for you to tap that subscribe button down below, because I have tons of wildlife photography content coming up with this lens. Leave a comment down below and let me know what lens you're using for your wildlife nowadays, because I've been loving this 200-400 and I'd love to see and hear what you guys have been capturing your wildlife images with. So now let's dive into this beast of a lens right here. So I've been using this lens for about a year now and it's been absolutely amazing. We'll start with the obvious thing right away, which is its size. This thing is about 7.4 pounds, and that's not including this lens hood here, which is quite light, but it's also made of metal, so I'm not really exactly sure how much this adds on to it. But this alone right here is 7.4 pounds. So this thing is about 14.4 inches long from the back of the lens here to the front. Again, not including the lens hood, but that adds about, I would say, 5 inches or so. And then on the back, I have about another extra inch here because of the Nikon FTZ adapter for the mirrorless system that I use. The next thing I wanted to talk about with you with this lens was the build design and where the switches are on the sides of the lens here. So the first switch is autofocus and manual focus, pretty simple. Here's auto and manual, so you can still manually focus the lens even when it's in autofocus on the camera, and then you can swap it all the way down to manual, where you're not using any autofocus with the lens and you're only manual focusing for your images. Right below that is focusing range. You have the full range, or you can do infinity to 6 meters. So the closest it would focus is 6 meters. So essentially what that button does is it helps with the lens not to be searching for focus all the time, back and forth all the way through the entire focus range. So if you have it on full, it will focus and attempt to focus all the way through its entire focus range, and the minimum focus distance is 2 meters. So where you switch it to infinity up to 6 meters, it won't try to focus on that 4 super close meters of distance you have from your lens to the object. So if you're shooting low to the ground wildlife, you can set it to infinity to 6 meters because your subject is past all of your foreground, and then your lens won't hunt and attempt to focus on the foreground, which makes shooting a lot faster. So I usually just keep it on infinity to 6 meters unless there's an unusually close animal or an unusually close subject for me. Right below that is VR, on, off, and then active and normal. Usually I just keep this in normal. If it's really windy outside, then I'll turn it to active. And then VR I usually leave on almost 95% of the time unless I'm really steady with a tripod and I don't need VR. But most of the time VR stays on for this lens. So a few other things right here. It comes with a drop-in filter. This is just a clear piece of glass that came with the lens, and you cannot shoot unless this is in and locked. So one thing that I have slightly upgraded on this lens is the lens foot here. So I haven't taken this off, but you can see I've added a bracket here to the bottom. This is to assist with the way that I hold the lens on the tripod. I have a gimbal head, and this long attachment at the bottom gives me a wide range of movement on the lens on the gimbal head. But besides that, the lens foot is very strong, and I actually carry it by the lens foot most of the time. The next thing I wanted to talk about with this lens was I wanted to explain the VR a little bit more. This is the version 2, so the VR is better version 1. According to the specs online, this is about 3 stops of vibration reduction, and from what I've noticed, it does quite a good job. I've gotten very smooth video clips of me hand holding this with the VR on. Granted, that has been with the Nikon Z6II, which also has in-body vibration reduction, which is quite good as well. So I don't know if it's that combination, but overall I've had a great time using the VR in this lens, and I pretty much keep it on at all times. The one thing I will say, the only time that I've struggled, and you can kind of notice when the VR is also struggling, is when the lens hood is on the front of this lens and you're out there shooting in very windy situations. The lens hood, like I said, does not add a lot of weight, but it definitely makes it a little bit weirder to hold up, and more weight of that is distributed towards the front. And also with windy conditions, you definitely catch a lot more of the wind with the big lens hood on. When I'm filming clips of wildlife in the wind, you can notice that the VR is doing a great job, but if I sway with the wind, you can notice the VR kind of jump a little bit with that. But basically that's just user error, and if you have stronger arms than me, you can definitely hold this up in the wind with no issues. That is why I'm looking to upgrade my tripod, just to support this lens a little bit more. But yeah, overall the VR has been very good, and you can definitely notice when it's on and when it's off. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was price and how much I paid for this. This was about $2,500, and I bought this used on eBay. A lot of the times in the past when I've been buying my more expensive lenses, except for the Z system, I've bought on eBay and I've bought used. And most of the time people take really good care of big lenses such as this because it was such a big investment for them in the first place that they want to keep it in good condition for their photos and for future sell-on fees. So most of the time these lenses are in really good condition, and this one was. So I would say this was definitely worth my purchase, and I definitely would not have gotten such good quality images and videos if I did not buy this lens. So another thing I wanted to talk about with this lens, when you're paying $2,500 for a lens, you expect it to come with some good packaging, and it definitely does. This is the bag that the lens comes with. It should, even when you're selling it used, they should be selling it with this case as well. It is a well padded case where you stick the lens down inside. What you do is you come like this, you take the front of the lens hood off, you flip this around, tighten that back up, so now it's much shorter. Then you grab the little cover to protect the front of the lens. You slide that on. Now your lens is all protected, the hood is reversed, and this is all padded in. Then you grab the big lens case, and you slide that right down in there. Zip that up, and you're ready to go. It is a sling bag, so you can have this over your shoulder. I typically carry it just by the handle here. But that is definitely one thing to consider when buying such a large lens. You want to think about how you're going to transport it, and that was kind of the main concern or hassle I had when switching from the 300mm to basically twice as big or 3 times as big and much more heavy in this 200-400 lens. So the way that I decided to carry it was most of the time in this case that it came with when I was on my road trip, and the lens was not attached to my camera when I'm driving or I'm not in a spot with wildlife. I would have it in here protected, nice and safe. But another way that I traveled with it, because I don't want to be carrying this and my big travel backpack when I'm on a flight or whatever. So on my first road trip, I packed this lens in this Pelican case. So this is the Pelican 1485 case, and it is perfect length for that lens. The one caveat is that you cannot put the lens hood on the lens, or it does not shut. So the lens hood, you either have to shove in the top of your backpack or fit somewhere else in your camera bag, because it does not fit in here. The circumference of the lens hood does not fit and not close in this Pelican case. But here I have it open, and right now I'm keeping a bunch of other stuff in there. It's my gimbal. As of right now, this is what I use for some video shoots, but I can rearrange the inserts in here, and it fits that wildlife lens perfectly with the lens foot on it and everything attached to it as well. It can also fit 1 to 2 extra lenses below the big 200-400. So that is the way that I've decided on carrying this lens. If I'm traveling on an airplane, it'll be in this Pelican case, so it's not being smashed around. But if I'm on a road trip in an area where I have my car available and I have much more space, then I will be keeping that lens in this hard-bottomed, soft, padded, protected case because you want to be treating such a big and expensive lens with a lot of care. So now let's take this bad boy back out and continue talking about it. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was why did I upgrade to this lens from my 300mm f4? Some of you might have seen last year's video where I did a review of a 300mm f4 Nikon lens, which is overall one of my favorite wildlife photography lenses that I've been able to use. And I still love that lens. I even took it on a trip in January, even though I had the 200-400 available. But the main reasons that I upgraded was for the added zoom range, the versatility of having a zoom rather than a prime, and then also the vibration reduction was a big improvement over a 300mm f4 that does not have VR. If you guys want to check out that video for more affordable wildlife photography lens, definitely go check it out. I still stand by that 300mm lens as one of my favorite wildlife photography lenses, especially if you're on a tighter budget than the 200-400mm. So another question that I wanted to address with the 200-400 here is, how does it perform with the 1.4 teleconverter attached to it as well? So for me, it's just the same as the 300mm, where you can definitely tell that there is added glass in there, especially if you zoom in really, really closely. You can kind of see a little bit of, I don't even know how to explain it, a little bit of like reverberation or something in there that shows there's an added piece of glass in the lens that's not really supposed to be there. But you can still get nice clean images with the teleconverter on both the 300 and this lens. However, for me, I did not use it that often because with the adapter here, the FTZ adapter, there's already extra in between the lens and the camera. It worked really well with the teleconverter on it, but the quality just wasn't worth the slight bit extra zoom. When I had a subject near me, 400 was always sufficient to capture close-up and sharp images of them without the teleconverter. And also I found that when you're using a teleconverter and you crop, you can definitely see the fact that you're having extra glass in there. So I prefer just to shoot at 400mm and crop more in rather than using the teleconverter. But it is good to know that you can use it with this lens and it does focus well and it does work well. But again, just a slight decrease in quality, same as most other lenses that you'll notice with a teleconverter. But that is why the new version of this lens has the teleconverter included and built into the lens. I'm assuming that that lens with the teleconverter built in has fantastic quality, plus it has 20mm more of zoom range. That is the 180mm to 400mm f4. That is the new version of this lens, and it looks really nice. But if you're on a budget, this is definitely the way to go. In my mind, buying a model before the current model is always the way to go with lenses. They have still great quality, but the price is significantly dropped off because there is a new model released. So, all in all, that is my review of the Nikon 200-400mm f4 VR2 lens. Gosh, that is a mouthful. So if you guys are new here, like I said in the beginning, definitely subscribe. I have a lot more wildlife photography content coming up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the clips and the photos that I got from Yellowstone that I included in this video. Originally, I was going to make a separate small little wildlife montage of just my Yellowstone trip, but after looking through my footage, I kind of figured out that I didn't film enough of the context of the landscape. I really only filmed the epic wildlife encounters, so hopefully fitting those in as examples for this lens was a great way to include those and show you guys the wildlife encounters that I had in Yellowstone because they were really awesome. If you guys want to see more of my wildlife photography, check out my wildlife photography Instagram page. It's linked down below and it'll be on the screen now. It's called Mitchell Coyle Wildlife. Pretty simple. But that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you next time, and that's going to be coming up from a video in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming.